me it's about bigger maybe reasons just because I'm human, they don't want my help. It seems it doesn't really matter, your superpower starts to the belt. I try to show the justice with the bad was a douche to me, a black canary wouldn't tell me hi. The classic man is who a middle finger, that story stories high. I got this from the ring.
Hello, and welcome back to Now Comics. I am Lou Gonzalez. Joining me this week is John Scott.
Yo.
And John Seiler.
Still not infected with the coronavirus, knock on wood.
Mm-hmm. So you've just been, eating Lysol like it's candy, right? That's what's saving you?
Yeah, man.
Excuse you, I had a Lysol burger today. I just squirted a little Lysol instead of ketchup. It's exactly what we did.
So we're going to go over, there's not a whole lot of news that's been going on. There's, one big story, which we have to cover because it's connected to what we read.
Which is funny because, last weekend was San Diego Comic-Con online only edition.
And no, I didn't hear anything come out of it that was worthwhile, right?
I mean, the only thing that came out that was worthwhile, at least to me, was Bill and Ted getting its VOD release date instead of going to theaters, or kind of going to theaters, and Dragon Prince getting picked up for the whole saga.
And New Mutants still aiming for that theater release.
I will say really quick, shout out to my friend who was the one running Justice Con, which was way more interesting than all of San Diego Comic-Con combined, I'm just saying.
So I guess we'll do a quick rundown of some of these news items. The first one, which I didn't know until I was clicking through, there's going to be a Batman, like how there was Batman TMNT, and there was a TMNT Power Rangers, now we're getting Batman Power Rangers.
Is this confirmed?
And
just art?
This is the artwork for it.
Okay.
There's other artwork for it. Because the Batgirl one has been released as well.
Can you put up what the Batgirl one looks like?
Yes. Let me go to the site.
This means we get another animated Batman Power Rangers movie. I'm not opposed to this.
It's Dan Mora's Batman Power Ranger team up. And I actually think the Batgirl one might be I think Batgirl and Nightwing are the best ones. Red Hood, it's kind of hard to do because it's he's already wearing a helmet.
Ooh, I like that design.
Yeah, the Batgirl looks super awesome. I like how it's her. I feel like her and Nightwing kind of complement each other really well with the blue and the yellow. Actually, even the fact that there's yellow on the Nightwing one is cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's a shame because this Batgirl costume reminds me a lot of the Burnside costume. It's just we're gonna make a more kind of Power Rangers-esque version of it. But yeah, this is a really nice costume, and it's way better than the current costume she has right now.
Yeah, well, it has kind of it's the color scheme of the current costume. I like the blue and yellow Batgirl for Barbara is always my favorite color scheme. I don't like the current costume. I liked actually the costume before Burnside the best, the black and gold one. That was when Gail Simone was writing it.
Yeah, which was the classic version of that costume.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's the modern classic version.
I like that Red Hood just basically looks like Red Hood.
Yeah, well, he's already basically in a Power Ranger helmet.
Yeah.
Robin is the only one that I'm I think it's the color scheme is goofy-ish.
He also has Mothwing.
Does he have Mothwing?
Or I mean, his cape looks like Mothwing. They look like a dust.
Oh yeah, it does. That's weird.
Which I kind of like. They're like little Robin. I only said Moth because it reminded me of Dustox from Pokemon.
Oh, see, it reminds me more of what's his name from The Tick?
Yep, Arthur.
Arthur, yeah. But yeah, they're cut weird, and it looks I wonder if I guess it's gonna be Tim. Unless they're going to do a Red Robin also, because it's obviously not Dick or Jason.
So is this written in...
I can actually... Let me look at the article.
More drawing it with who writing it?
It is... Oh, so that is not Tim Drake. That is... What do you call it? Damian.
Yeah.
He is going to put out the Red Robin soon.
He already did.
Oh.
This was 4 hours ago.
I can't tell if this is him just putting these out there. I think this is just sketches, and I got tricked.
I think from what I'm hearing, I think these are sketches, and I think you got bamboozled there, Lou.
Hey, do you want to just cut all of this out and restart the podcast? Will this be act like nothing happened?
Oh, there we go. Batman becomes a Power Ranger in amazing fan art.
except that he's a comic book artist, so it's just like sketches.
Yes.
The second story John Scott shared with me before, but
Welcome to And Now Comics.
the Beast Boy young adults graphic novel that they're doing.
It's coming out like in a month.
Yeah. So they released some art for it. Yeah. So you told me you read the Teen Titans Raven book.
It is, and it is a phenomenal graphic novel. I cannot recommend it enough. I really do appreciate like them taking these DC characters, especially like these younger ones, and giving them like modern day kind of problems, like putting them in like a modern situation that like teenagers deal with. Like, again, it's been a while since I've read it, but like for Raven, she like dealt with the loss of her mother, and she's been living with other people, stuff like that. Like,
then she finds out her dad's the devil.
Well, yeah. I mean, she went to go like a tragic accident, like takes her mom and Raven's own memory, and then she moves to New Orleans, starts over, and then she's discovering, oh wait, I have a darkness inside me. Oh wait, Daddy's the devil. Oopsie. But in all seriousness, the DC young adult graphic novel line has been consistently so far genuinely great. There's the Raven one. There's a Harley Quinn one I've also read, which is pretty great. There's currently an Oracle one I want to read, a Rob Dick Grayson one, and a Aquaman one, which I know got pretty
Aqualad.
Was it Aqualad?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. That makes more sense with what you said before. Because, Aqualad's been an openly gay character for a while. Because it's Calderon, right? The black Aqualad?
Yep.
Yeah. The panels for this Beast Boy thing, or the pages, it's like, I guess him finding he has powers, he gets dared to eat a Carolina Reaper pepper, which is like the hottest pepper, and his body reacts by changing him into like giving him the abilities of something that could withstand it, or changing his tongue like an animal. And that's how he figures out, then he just eats like the whole thing. I don't know. It's very like I agree, like it's very fun. I've liked what they've done with the what's that other comic line that the Wonder Comics. They've all been really good.
Yeah, it's like you have a good kids line that basically builds up a future fans for your entire comic line.
Yeah, and I think I'm still reading Artemis and Young Justice. Not Artemis. Amethyst. Yes. And then so our next story. I'm going to skip the other one, John, and go to Andrew Lloyd Webber comments on Cats movie.
When Mr. Lloyd Andrew Webber had to say.
He said the problem with the film was that Tom Hooper decided that he didn't want anybody involved in it who was involved in the original show. The whole thing was ridiculous.
That's the problem with the movie. No one from the original show is it, because that's the problem.
I mean, it's like also it's like you have a guy like Andrew Lloyd Webber who is like, it's like he's like no schmuck. Like he's like a very well celebrated playwright, has made a lot of hits, and Tom Hooper is like a guy who is like kind of shown like he wants to do musicals that are not musical, that are musical. Like Les Miserables is like he wants to do musicals, but they're filmed, but like still have things that make them music. Like the structure of like how like a song is done, or like how crowd interaction is still within the film. And so it's just like Tom Hooper is like a guy who like doesn't kind of really seem to know like kind of like what he wants as a filmmaker. So it's like, of course you're not going to bring in a guy like Andrew Lloyd Webber, which is like, again, like if you're going to like do an adaptation of Cats, it seems like you like, you might want him on board at least.
So just going off and being like, I'm going to do the most ridiculous stuff possible.
Well, I mean, it's like Tom Hooper was a guy who, say what you will about Les Miserables, like was a huge financial hit that garnered a bunch of awards.
Yeah, so didn't it win like 2 Oscars or something?
It won a bunch of stuff. It won some stuff, but like
Anne Hathaway, I think, won Best Supporting.
Won Best Actress. Yeah. It wasn't. I know it wasn't well received among people I know who saw the musical, but I do know that Tom Hooper really got his big teeth in like The King's Speech 10 years ago.
Yeah, but like
that movie's awesome.
But like Tom Hooper at that point, like making Cats is already high on his own supply, and it's like you hear like basically all the horror stories about like uncorroborated like rumors about the making of that movie, where it's like he wanted to do CGI but not CGI, and that's why all like the cats look fucking weird in that movie. But like then again, it's like I don't know, man. It's like if they did like if they did like a serious actual Cats adaptation, like
Was this not a serious
it'd probably
adaptation?
be better. But it's like I don't know. It's like if I'd like it more than what we
I
got.
don't know.
because it's
I
such
think
a
this was the
disaster.
serious Cats adaptation there, Siler, but it wasn't perceived that way by the rest of the movie-going audience.
I mean, like, okay, so here's the thing: it's like, would you have much rather have seen the pre-Sonic the Hedgehog, or
Oh,
like,
the teeth
or
cut?
the teeth cut, or would you have rather have seen like, oh hey, like the Sonic movie that actually like has a Sonic that looks the way he does?
In the world we live in now, we will get the hashtag teeth cut.
Hashtag release the teeth cut.
Yep.
Yeah.
So you dropped in the next article, Siler, the Avatar one.
Now, I didn't know about this. This I'm excited for.
Oh yeah. Dark Horse announced like OGNs for Avatar: The Last Airbender. One's going to be written by Faith Erin Hicks, with art by Pierre Wortman, called Top Beifeng's Meldbending Academy. Faith Erin Hicks has like actually written a good handful of Avatar comics, and I'm like a little behind on them, but like I really want to check them out, and this sounds great. About it's tough, like teaching people like how to metalbend.
So wouldn't you just be an earthbender? Because metal is like broad.
Well, yeah. So earthbenders like there is earthbending, and then like Toph, like because she's like so good at earthbending, like discovers like metal bending because metal is just another part of the earth. So she's able to like control metal, and it's like her.
Just she's Magneto.
Yeah, and it's like but like she's the only metal bender.
Yeah, It's a very rare ability to have.
And like
That's cool.
and all the benders have like different bendings. There are like subsections, like water benders can blood bend or take the water from like plants and animals.
I feel like Avatar is a show and like a whole thing that I think I somehow missed. I think I saw the first season and just fell out of it, and it's something I need to go back and watch because I've only heard amazing things from Avatar and Korra.
I told you in the quarantine special. I told everyone in the quarantine special, go watch Avatar, and now it's out on Netflix.
I guess I got it. After I read, I'm like a couple pages into my goals.
After you read Avatar, read the Search comic because that answers one of the biggest mysteries the show leaves.
Yeah.
The other one is Katara and the Pirate Silver, which is going to be done by Jin Yin Yang with Gary Hiru.
Wait, no, that's not what I have here.
Oh wait, no.
That's Faith Erin Hicks also.
Oh, that's Faith Erin Hicks also. It's the same team. So it's both teams are basically going to be doing like these.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
They're like, oh, hey, we've come accustomed to like blah 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 the same word. Yeah, because Jin Yin Yang and Gary Hiru have done. But it was like it was the way that it was like printed within this article. Like, oh, expect this like great art, blah blah blah, from also Katara and the Pirates. But yeah, Katara like has history with pirates in the show. And it's like, oh hey, like more pirates.
And then I was gonna say I'm introducing my girlfriend right now to Avatar, and she's in love with it. But I told her in order to get how much of a breath of fresh air Korra was, you have to watch the movie. She's like, all right, as long as we can make fun of it. I'm like, sure.
Yeah,
I don't have time for that.
Yeah, and like, if you've never seen Avatar, it's currently the Last Airbender is currently all up on Netflix, and Korra is hitting Netflix this month, right?
Yeah, on the 14th. Yep.
How many seasons is Avatar?
3.
Last Airbender is 3 seasons, and
Korra really? I feel like I always thought it was like 12 or something like that.
Oh, no. Avatar is only Avatar: The Last Airbender is only 3. Korra is 4.
Oh, you actually like that actually, because that's what scares me off of some shows. No,
it's in and out.
Like a One Piece, where I'm just like, I can't. I don't like. I know you've been doing
establishes in the first season. Like we have like a certain goal in mind. We have an end game.
Yeah, I definitely remember whole chunks of Avatar for watching the first season. I think what year did it come out?
2005.
That's probably why, because 2005, I'm in high school, and then I go to college the next year, and I'm not watching.
Yeah, I was 12 when this show came out, so I fell in love with it immediately.
So the Dark Horse solicitations you posted in here, Styler, there are 2 books that I am super hyped for in this solicitation.
The one I'm pretty hyped for is there is going to be a new miniseries for The True Lives of the Fabulous Killjoys. It will be from Gerard Way, Sean Simon, and Leonardo Romero, which kind of sucks that we're not getting Becky Cloonan returning to True Lives of the Fabulous Killjoys, but like I really like that first series. And this is all basically an adaptation of like the 3rd or 4th My Chemical Romance album of the same name, where it's like set in like a future dystopia. Yeah, with like Grant Morrison being a villain who's like a hired gun for like Better Living Industries, which is like this conglomerate pharmaceuticals company that basically rules the city, and on the outskirts of the city are the Killjoys. We're all like mask wearing like vigilantes who like are trying to stop like the evil corporation. It's just rad. It's so rad.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the one that I like, the one of the 2 is the Alien book, because I read the Alien 3 comic adaptation of the script that they didn't use, the first script, and it was fantastic and better than the movie we got. And so they're doing the same thing with the original script from Alien, the O'Bannon script,
where like Ripley is still like a male character.
I don't remember if it's that one, but it's a different design it's like the original design of the creature. It might be where Ripley is a guy, but it's still just like an interesting take, because the Alien 3 one I cannot recommend enough. Read that over watching the movie, because the movie kind of Alien.
To be fair, the producer's cut of Alien 3 is pretty good.
Yes, but the problem is Aliens 3 undercuts the awesomeness of Aliens.
Oh, I agree.
And the Alien 3 comic, which is the original script, does not. Like, Newt is involved, and what's his name is a major character with Ripley. Like, what's his name from Terminator? The only soldier that survives.
Michael Biehn.
Yeah, Michael Biehn, yeah. And it's like, the 2 of them are like, what the shit is going on? And you get to learn more about, like, the world that exists in, like, that universe, like, and the governments and stuff like that. It's really cool.
So I'm looking here. They're making a Bill and Ted prequel to the movie, to the new movie.
Yeah, with Evan Dorkin.
That's cool.
Who like, wrote the original Bill and Ted comics from like the 90s.
Oh, I read those a little bit. That's awesome.
Yeah, and like Roger Langridge is doing like the interior art, and like he's great. Yeah, like
the rest of their like October solicitations.
Oh, this actually, did you read the little blurb of what it's about?
Yes, it sounds.
they get booked at a Scandinavian death metal festival because death's in their band.
That I gotta tell you, I can't wait for that movie. I can't wait for that movie.
It's crazy how good both of them still look. Like, Keanu Reeves is some sort of a cybernetic human.
Reeves,
even what's his name, Alex Winter looks great.
I think Keanu Reeves dipped himself into the fountain of youth as a young.
What it is he's got the mixed blood age powers, where like if you're like super mixed, like you don't age, like The Rock, or if you're just like a blend of so many different things. Because Keanu's like Filipino and white and like I think like Native American and something else.
Like Alex Winter, I'm also looking, has done quite a bit directing wise.
Oh, he did like a huge documentary. The Dark Web one was like huge documentary. That was like 7 years ago, something like that. That was about
Keanu Reeves narrated it.
The Silk Road was what it was called? Something like that. It was like where you could buy like heroin off the internet and stuff like that.
It's like he's done stuff like that.
Yeah, the thing, but it was like a specific part, like a specific thing. It was called like the Silk Road, I think. And he went and visited people. Is crazy.
Weird because he's done stuff like, okay, he's directed like Deep Web, but then he's also directed the 2 live action Ben 10 movies and the Smosh movie.
He's staying busy.
He is, which I'm happy about, but I'm like, that's a all over the place kind of thing.
Yeah,
so
I've heard him on podcasts too. Like seems like a super interesting guy and like fun and gets it. The other book that I'm excited for, because do you say you read the book if you listen to the audio version? So
are you talking about Sandman?
No, but right author, the Neil Gaiman Norse mythology.
Oh, that's right. I heard about this. Yeah, I just saw that.
Yeah, so they have like the two covers, and yeah, so they're turning that fiction book he made based off of his research on Norse mythology, which he reads the audiobook, and it's fucking awesome. So I can't wait to read like a comic book adaptation. It's a very good attachment piece if you're playing God of War, because it's close. Like the God of War actually does like a better job of going to like the Norse text that exists. But it's also like a really interesting, like it's a whole bunch of Norse stories that like you've never heard of because they weren't in Marvel Comics. So it's very fun. And he also explains how it's like, oh, it's like if all your writings of Greek mythology was just about Zeus and Hercules, that's all we have of Norse mythology. Because it's only Odin and Thor, and it's like very little of Thor. It's almost all Odin, which is interesting. And yeah, it's a really cool book, or the book itself. So I can't wait for the comic.
Oh, and I think Mike Mignola is working on it too.
Yeah, he did at least did a cover, but yeah, it looks like he's doing some other stuff. Trying to see, was there any other news thing? I don't know what this other thing you posted in here, John, besides it looking like.
One of the only other like kind of like news that came out from San Diego or like week that I was just like mystified by was Sublime Line Manga, which is a predominantly yaoi based publisher, which is.
Can you explain yaoi for the listeners?
Which is basically like men like male romance comics made for women.
Yeah, it's like kind of it's the South Park did a whole episode goofing on it. Weirdly.
Oh, I remember,
with Craig and Twitter.
Yes.
So they're putting out this new book called Dick Fight Island. 8 mighty island warriors battle to become king. The deciding factor, the one who comes last, of course. And the art looks incredible. It's like guys wearing like Speedos and armor with swords.
I can tell you what it is. It's Saint Seiya porn.
Yeah. Except for you don't see anything like in the tweet, and it basically looks like they have like cod pieces that are swords, and I'm like,
so dick swords, got it.
And I'm like, this looks incredible.
It looks like they have prehensile like cod pieces.
Yeah,
because it looks like they have like elbows and stuff in them, and this one guy looks like a Tony Stark character.
He looks like Mitsurugi from Soul Calibur.
I have played, I think, one Soul Calibur game ever.
One Soul Calibur. I was gonna say like, I've only played.
I think it was PS2.
But yeah, this book looks incredible, and I have never bought a book from Sublime Line. I might have to. This.
I think there's one other story that we didn't add here. Actually, two other things. The first one, which I think we all agree is probably kind of awesome, is Dan Snyder announced that he's basically after, I think, death metal or whatever he has after death metal, he is basically not doing anything in continuity anymore. And he's just going to be able to play in his own sandbox with all the toys he wants to and doesn't have to adhere to DC continuity ever again.
I'm fine with that.
And like kind of likewise, like or not likewise, on the flip side, the story came out this week where I don't know if you've heard about this, Siler, where it was revealed that at one point Marvel executives wanted to change Miles Morales' Spider-Man's name.
I did not hear about that.
You want to guess what it would have been? Put your brain in the oldest, whitest man's mind. Like, you know how there's like Spider-Gwen isn't really Spider-Gwen. She's really like Ghost Spider or Spider-Woman, depending on her universe. So instead of being Spider-Man, what do you think Miles Morales would have been?
No. Oh, I do because this was like a rumor from like.
I think it's been a rumor for forever, and it got confirmed.
Yeah, and it was something like really stupid. Like, oh man, like yeah, just tell me because like I remember there was like this was around like Civil War II.
It's Spy-D.
Yes, it was that. Oh my God, yeah, what an awful name.
And I think they said it was while he was taking over in the Ultimate Universe.
Yeah, I can just imagine like also like the logo would have been in like graffiti font.
Oh my god, yeah.
Remember the punk spider costume in
Oh, Spider Punk.
God,
Yes.
what a great costume. But yes, go on.
I feel like there would be a promo image where it'd be the spider punk costume and it's just Spy D.
Uh,
And like Spider-Punk, also another great Black Spider-Man.
there's like, well, no, what's his name is not. 2099 isn't black. He's Dominican.
He's Spanish.
He's Hispanic. Because Miles is mixed. He's half black, half Puerto Rican. And then I guess we can spin into stuff we've been reading because there's like one big thing I've been reading that I want to talk about, but like I think we should catch up on what the X-Men stuff we've been reading because since it's actually been coming out. I think it's been fucking awesome.
But I haven't. So I use Hoopla to read all my library stuff really because it's free. And currently, right now, they only have Volume 1 of X-Men, Excalibur, New Mutants.
Yeah, Volume 1 should have like the first 5 issues or so. Or talking about issue 1.
I'm talking about Volume 1, so like they have the first volume of issue.
Yeah, so
the first
only thing is
each one.
They like the newer ones, like Cable 2 came out, and then a couple other X books that were interesting. The Cable one is fun because that's the tie-in to the X of Swords, the Ten of Swords stuff. And basically, I think it was in 2 different comics this week, or one last week and this week, was like Cable's dating all of the Cuckoos.
Now, when you typed that, I wanted to tell you, I thought for a second it was like a Cucks, and I'm like, considering it's Hickman, I'm not surprised.
Oh, yeah, it's pretty much, and they like the conversation that Emma and Scott have in the book is really good. I am also, like, so a lot of this stuff has been good. Wolverine, his book wrapped up its first, like, saga, and it was interesting. I think that was the book that they goofed about it, because he makes a deal with the Cuckoos in that book to like hook them up with Cable. And then the Fantastic Four crossover one wrapped. And it's interesting.
I read the Fantastic Four X-Men one. I thought it was fine.
Yeah, the ending is the best part of the whole book.
Yeah, because I'm finally glad someone stuck it to Reed Richards.
Yeah, as in like Magneto unzipped his pants with his powers, unzipped Xavier's pants, and then Xavier telekinetically like slapped Mr. Fantastic across the face with it.
Yeah,
and it's so good.
Well, yeah, I guess like, are we just like gonna play like coy and like not like really say what happened?
Yeah, I do. I think the main thing to like that's not the non-spoilery thing is like, oh, like Doom is like setting stuff up in a very shitty way. Like Doom is being Doom. Yeah, Doom is being Doom. So if there becomes, which there is inevitably going to be, some sort of conflict with Krakoa and the rest of the world, Doom is going to be one of the main players. And there's other interesting things like that happened in that, but I still like those books. So before I go to my other thing I really want to talk about, is there anything you guys been reading?
So because I have Hoopla, I have been checking out a lot recently in terms of comics, catching up on what I've missed. So I've read Hoxpox finally, which was as amazing as you guys mentioned. That was incredible. I've read Superman Smashes the Klan, which was a fun read. Doomsday Clock, which it's Doomsday Clock, so
it's a book.
It's a book that exists. I've read Power Rangers Soul of the Dragon.
It's a book where Mary Marvel sees Dr. Manhattan's dick.
It's a book that has pictures and words.
Yeah, not just her. Like everybody gets to see it. And I think, doesn't Booster Gold comment on it?
I'm pretty sure he does. I've read the Power Rangers Soul of the Dragon graphic novel, which is basically Logan but Power Rangers, which was kind of awesome.
That sounds cool.
It was cool. I would recommend it. Superman American Alien, which was actually, as much as I hate Max Landis, it was a really cool read. I enjoyed myself.
Yeah, it's very famously like a very good book from a very shitty person.
Yes. And then Batman The Long Halloween, which I enjoyed. It's a classic. I read Ultimates 2, which was better than Ultimates 1 because it didn't have any really cringy things and really problematic scenes this time around.
Yeah, I don't think it gets crazy bad into Ultimates 3 is like offensive. Is Ultimates 3 when Wasp gets eaten?
No, that's Ultimatum. But
Okay.
Hawkeye's family is killed, including his baby, and then he breaks out by killing a bunch of guys with his fingernails.
It is the most badass scene ever. Like, but it is super fucked up. And the sex tape?
Yes.
Yeah, and they also kill Jarvis.
And then I read Wanted, which was not the movie. I knew it was not going to be the movie, but I enjoyed myself.
You're just in a Mark Millar run?
I did for a little bit, and then I went to
Wanted, the comic with Eminem and Halle Berry being assassins.
Yes. And then Superman Year One, which was good up until a point, and then it got bad.
Is that the Frank Miller one?
Yes.
I think I've only read the first issue.
There's a point in which it stops being good, and I'm like, damn it, you were there, and then you just go down.
Yeah, once he joined the army, I was like, checking out.
And then I read the Crisis on Infinite Earths Paragon's Rising tie-in for the crossover.
Oh, yeah, I think I read that. That was fun.
It was fun. I knew it wasn't like supposed to be like canon or anything, but I'm like, all right, this is cool. And then I read today's comic, what we're talking about, and I'm currently finally reading Mr. Miracle by Tom King.
Great book.
I'm sorry for rambling on too long. I had a lot of comics to read.
Hey guys.
Ryan just joined us. We're talking about what we read.
I didn't read as much as other John did, but I'm currently up to date on Wicked Things from Boom Studios by John Allison, Max Sarin, and I've like talked about a lot how I really love Giant Days, and this is like kind of like a pseudo sequel to Giant Days, which is also like a spin-off of Scary Go Round. So in Giant Days, there is a like 10-year-old girl who like shows up for like a couple stories named Charlotte Grote, who it like basically looks up to Esther and like is basically this like kind of like precocious young girl. She ends up growing up to be like a famous like teen detective in Scary Go Round. And it's basically like a Scooby Gang kind of type book where like they go on mysteries and like solve crimes and stuff. So Wicked Things is basically about Charlotte going to an award ceremony for teen detectives, and she's going to receive an award, and she's like kind of treated like a lot of garbage from like all the other teen detectives. And stuff happens. She's supposed to meet with like this famous detective, and she walks into his like hotel room, and he's dead. And now she is like blamed for his murder. So Wicked Things is basically her trying to like work with the police to try and clear her name, but the police don't believe her and also treat her like a nuisance because they don't believe like what she does is real detective. And it's like really fun in the way that Giant Days is, but like it has like a more of a through storyline because it's like, hey, it's a murder mystery, so you're like trying to kind of like figure out like what's going on. And Max Sarin, who did the art for Giant Days, is working here too, so it has like a lot of like the really cool paneling and expressive artwork that you expect from Giant Days. But it's like 3 issues in. I think it's supposed to be 6 issues altogether. It is really fun so far. The other book I'm reading is Spy Family on Shonen Jump app. Has anyone here heard of Spy Family or Spy Cross Family?
No.
So it's a relatively new manga. Like I think there's 4 volumes out, maybe about 25 chapters so far. And it's set in like kind of like a modern world where there is these 2 warring nations, and there's like this famous spy called Twilight who basically does like all of like this espionage shit for like this one nation, and he's like given like a new task to basically infiltrate this school that the son of this dictator like goes to, and like try and like work his way within the system to basically kill this not a dictator, but like some kind of like magistry of some kind. And so Twilight has to basically put together like a fake family to, try and infiltrate the school. And so he ends up adopting this young girl named Anna, who also happens to be like a psychic, but like he doesn't know. But so she's like reading his mind, and so she's not like an entirely like kind of like bright kid, but she's like really kind of like a fun like character who's like trying to hide the fact that she can like read his mind. And he ends up like getting this woman to be like his fake wife, and she's like kind of like like a silent, like she doesn't talk a lot, she's kind of shy, but she's also secretly an assassin named Thorn Princess. So Anya basically knows that her dad is a super spy and her mom is like this world-class assassin.
Oh.
And the art's like really good. It's like I can't really like really think about like what the art like reminds me a lot of. But it has like what you would consider to be like pretty good traditional artwork for like a manga, but then like characters when they get like freaked out or surprised will just like make these really like goofy expressions that I just like love.
Or, like kind of like chibi style like faces.
Yeah, like they're like Anya like has like a lot of just like really great surprise moments. Like I'll post some into like the descriptions. But yeah, it's great if you want to be like kind of on the ground level of a really good shonen manga. Spy Family is pretty good. More than likely because it's a shonen manga, it'll probably get an adaptation at some point. But I'm pretty sure I talked about it all in here also at some point. But the Shonen Jump app is like a really good deal. It's like $3 a month, and you basically get like everything that's published from Shonen Jump. So, and you usually get them like pretty date and date. I think it's like maybe like wait a day for like the newest chapter of a book. But it's like they got all of One Piece. They got Chainsaw Man. They got like Demon Slayer. Like kind of like everything you would ever want to read from Shonen Jump is on. And I think like with a book like Spy Family, it's like kind of like really diversifying like what you kind of come to expect from Shonen Jump, because I think it's like so long like you associate Shonen Jump with like a lot of stuff like Dragon Ball or Bleach or Naruto or whatever. But I think between like Spy Family and Chainsaw Man and a couple other like new stuff, like I think they're like kind of really diversifying like the genres and the art styles of that publishing wing, and it's like pretty nice.
It kind of ties into the thing that like I read. So in the last like 2 weeks, I read all of God of High School, which is like 470 issues. But it's a webtoon comic, so they're all free. I basically caught up to like what they're at, which I think they're going to end at 500. And the anime has been out for like 1 month. It's like a Crunchyroll exclusive. So I've caught up on that as well. I love the comic. So far, I am not the biggest fan of the anime. I guess the best way to describe the show is it's kind of like Dragon Ball meets JoJo.
Okay.
So there are 3 main characters. The main guy is Jin Mori. Then there's like Han and I can't pronounce his last, like Dewey and Yu Mira. So it's a Korean comic. The anime is Japanese done. So like there's a little bit of changing of the names. It does see some of the exact same things you said, John, when like characters make crazy faces and stuff. Like when they're describing the one girl, like they're always like she's like very pretty, but then when they describe her, like the picture always comes up of this like giant gruffle man because she's like a sword master. And then basically they are entered into a tournament, and whoever wins gets their wish. And the tournament they're in, though, is like the Seoul, the capital city tournament to go to the full country and then the world. And the thing that's like JoJo is, and they've already, by episode 3, that's one of the things I don't like about the anime, is like they're kind of blowing through stuff in like the first like I don't know like 20 issues. They were already finished by episode 4.
Oh God.
So one of the things is like there's in the anime it's called God Power, I guess, but in the comic it's called Borrowed Power, and people can forge a kind of connection to a deity-like being and gain abilities from it and like summon it. And it opens basically the show opens where somebody puts like kills a bunch of people by putting like a giant what looks like a Buddha palm on like an island. And it's like like it gets really crazy. Like one of the guys has like a jester with a scythe is his borrowed power. And it's interesting. They've done some changes in the anime that I'm not like a super fan of, but like yeah, it's really like if you like that kinetic Dragon Ball like fighting action, the comic is really good. The anime in the fights has done a pretty good job of displaying that. But the comic goes bonkers like pretty quickly. It's a giant spoiler, so I don't want to spoil it for you, but like it gets into like crazy ass shit where if you're like you can be like a descendant of a god, and then you have like a better base, like your powers or connection with them are even stronger. And there's like special weapons that like people have that are like national weapons. They're like historical weapons, like the Lance of Longinus, and there's like all stuff from all over the world.
How do you say it?
Isn't it like the Lance of Longinus, or is it? How do you pronounce it? Longinus?
Yeah.
Oh, it's Roman. I don't know how to say it. It gets into weird stuff because like
Lance of Longinus.
Longinus. Okay. I don't think I've ever heard it out loud before.
I should also point out you mentioned God of High School. Speaking of webtoons, Lore Olympus just came back. I think yesterday or today, actually, with the first episode.
Yep. Yeah, that's my next thing that I'm going to start reading.
Man, it is so good.
Yeah, I think that's what got me into this because you said that, and then like they are subbed to them at the same time, and it just hooked me. God of High School. It's super interesting.
Speaking of webtoons, season 2 of Solo Leveling started as well. It came out with Lore of Olympus as well as Tomb Raider King. I don't know if you guys ever read Solo Leveling, but I would recommend reading that. It's pretty good.
Yeah. So is there anything else, or do we want to jump into our comic that we all read?
I'm ready to jump into the comic.
All right. So we read for this week because we are going to do the movie next. The 2010 Dynamite, which we'll talk about them after we talk about the comic. Green Hornet, which is kind of like the Alien script I talked about, like the Alien comic, where it's kind of hard to tell, but it seems like they took Kevin Smith's script for a Green Hornet movie he did not make.
Because he famously said that he was too lazy to make an action movie.
I thought that they just like wanted to go in a like different route and didn't want to give him like the budget.
I mean, like the thing I always heard Kevin Smith say was he was just like too lazy to make an action movie. That
also makes sense.
Well, I think also,
which was like kind of like funny that years later he does like those episodes of The Flash.
Well, I think at the time he was kind of probably burned on writing for
Yeah. Was this around the Too Fat to Fly stuff?
No, this was I think 2004.
Because the movie is what?
Yeah, 2004 was when Kevin Smith was hired to write the movie, write and direct.
Oh wow! Yeah, which we'll get into all the stuff that happened with that movie, but like, I do think that like this comic so it's the script that he wrote, translated by someone else into a comic, like, and then drawn into a comic book. So it's not his specific writing; it's like an interpretation of his script, like those Alien books I talked about before.
I think he definitely had a creative hand in making sure things.
Yeah, he was involved. Like he wasn't hands off, but he didn't. I don't think he wrote dialogue and stuff like that.
Some of the dialogue kind of feels a little.
Well, I think some of the dialogue is pulled from the script, probably. Like it sounds like it, and I do think the one thing I'll say is I think this is still the best way to probably do a modern Green Hornet movie or anything. conceptually wise, like I think this makes the most sense.
There is, I don't know, man. Like, I feel like there's like specifically like dialogue wise, there are like certain terms and stuff that's like used in this book that I'm just like, I don't know if like this is like this is definitely would have been like something that may have not have aged.
Oh yeah, well I think especially in the first issue, because in the first issue to start off with, we are in the past. It doesn't say when, but if you're assuming, I think in this world it's based on the TV show. That so this is what, like the 60s or the 70s, probably like the 60s, right? Is that when the show came out?
Yeah, let's just say it's like, well, because he's like the son of the Green Hornet's like in his mid 20s, right, or his early 20s, right?
Yes.
And you see him as like a little baby in episode 1 or issue 1. So like, I don't know, man, maybe it's like 20 years later kind of thing. So like if this movie would have came out in like 2010,
2005, so this is the 80s.
Yes.
Okay, so yeah, let's go with that. So this is the 80s, because I think what you're talking about is this first initial thing, the meeting between the Italian mob and the Yakuza. There's a bunch of racist terms thrown around.
Which it was like, there were like terms used, and I'm like, I've never heard this term before.
You really?
I assume it's like the.
So I will say the term. I'm of Asian descent. You're talking about the term nips, right?
Yeah.
That is a very old school derogatory term based on specifically for the Japanese, because they call Japan Nippon. So yeah, it is a term that has existed, and I think in realism that is something a 1980s Italian mobster would say to a Yakuza or a Japanese person.
And I think there's something to be different when it's like a character of that, a character saying it within a movie, but then like also expecting like you as the reader to be reading a comic with that word being used.
Yeah, but like it's an old gray hair Italian man in the 80s. So if he's like in his 60s in the 80s, like it kind of makes sense. And he's talking to I would say somebody that's in their like 20s or 30s. Who's the Yakuza boss? Probably his 30s.
I assume the Yakuza boss is the same age as.
Okay, so like
because
early 30s.
Because spoiler, they look like to be about the same age when he shows back up in the book.
Yes. So we get all this stuff going on, and basically this first issue or this first part is the end of the Green Hornet, the original one. And so they bust up this place. We get kind of good backstory on who the Hornet is and Kato. And basically, their idea of crime fighting was to pose as the baddest ass gangsters around. And everybody believes that they have some deal where they use the cops to take out their competition.
Yeah, it was kind of really clever that way, I feel like.
Which I think is all from the radio play and the TV show, like that concept.
Oh, yeah.
So we get the awesome action, we get the darts, the jumping through the ceiling, Green Hornet kicking ass, and then the car coming in, and Kato, who looks just like Bruce Lee did, which famously Bruce Lee played the character, and they just beat the shit out of everybody. And that is the end of organized crime in
Century City, I think is the name.
Century City?
Crime ended, you guys.
Yeah.
Guys,
all crime.
Well, he says like it's the end of organized crime. Like regular crime's still around, and the cops can deal with that.
Yeah, a nice green suit with Asian sidekick and his nice black car ended.
It reminded me an awful lot of like the Superman Grounded, where it's like they're like
I hate that.
Like crime is ended here, but like what about the crime over there? And I'm like, yeah, Superman, why don't you try and help the crime over there? And he's like, well, if I help the crime over there, then that crime is going to go somewhere else. And I'm just like, what?
Grounded was a mistake.
Like Green Hornet's like, well, yeah, I solved organized crime. Shouldn't you just be happy with that? You're like, well, how about like all crime? They're like, nah.
I think the idea is that like he's getting rid of the major crime in the city. So then, like, if drugs and like organized like weapons and all that stuff. Whatever. Like, yeah. We get this cool little goodbye kind of between him and Kato, and the catching of the vase that they knock over when they come through their secret entrance in the fireplace. And they have their like Taoist saying. He checks in on Little Brit, and then the weirdest thing in the book is the wife pulling a gun on him.
It's very understated. Yes, like this is like
Then she
this
was
is like
"Oh,
supposed to be like something she's like trying to play with him, like have some fun.
It's
Like
insane. It's an insane thing that she does.
it's like,
Yeah.
And he reacts like kind of normal, but it's also kind of fucked up.
she
'Cause he,
like
like-
okay. So the scene is like he checks on his son. He closes the door, and then like there's a single panel of someone putting a gun to his back, cocking the gun because there's an actual click. And it's like, "Don't move, masked man." And he like flips over and he holds her, and he's like,
Puts her in a choke.
and she's just like, "This is any chance you thought of getting lucky tonight just went south." And she's like mad that
Yeah,
he like
it's like, Jesus, Janet, what are you out of your mind? I could have killed you.
yeah, and it's
And
just
she's like, if
like
you ever get rough with me again, like I'm out of this marriage. And he's like, you stuck a gun in my ribs.
and then they go back to just talking about like basically what happened tonight. I'm like, what was this segment? Is this just like their like did she used to be like a supervillain? Is this like Catwoman and Batman like kind of foreplay where they're like, "Oh, like I'm the bad guy, like come and catch me, Green Hornet."
And what's funny is this is the only time we ever see her in this comic, or like
Yeah.
in these issues.
Yeah.
And they do talk about their sex because she likes when he wears the mask to bed, but not the hat. The hat's lame.
even though the hat's pimp.
Mm-hmm. And then we cut to basically like, oh, we solved everything. Now the city's going to be like just like it was for us. And we cut to today, and it's young Brit waking up with a PlayStation controller, and like two women are in the place he's at, and basically we're learning his girlfriend is breaking up with him, like just dumping him because he doesn't do anything with his life.
He's
Yeah,
a
he's a
He's a
trust
party-
fundy.
Yeah, he's male Paris Hilton, I feel like, is what they're writing. And we get all the paparazzi, then we get the old man, and he's like, well, at least my son is in shape, and we see the Sentinel, which is the newspaper.
Yeah, and also like here's like the thing about like also this is like this is set in like 2010, and he runs like a newspaper that's failing, but like because like based off of like the idea that they have this conversation later about how like no one's reading papers anymore. So I think you're too
To be fair, the story could have also been set in 2004 when
sure.
Yeah,
But my question is, it's just like how much is this guy's trust fund if he's like living in this lavish house and going on jet rides all the time when like their basic income is coming through from the newspaper? Because I assume
it seems like it's like their old money. Like it's kind of like he took the newspaper industry, because what we learned with what he does with the Hornet, like, and in like the 80s and 90s and early 2000s, or like up till the early 2000s, like he's been dominating until like the big conglomerates, and it's not a publicly shared company, it's just his company. So he's making all of the ad revenue off the company himself. So like, yeah, that's like the part of like the time, like it being produced in 2010, but it's a script from like 2004, 2005 is kind of wonky. But we do get like the old man Brit, like kind of being shady, burying the picture of his son, and then they're talking about the mayoral thing, and you're backing a lame duck. No one wants this guy. I know he's your friend from the past, but he's got this weird. There's rumors he's got this weird deal with Tigget, or is that how you say it? Tigget, this like weapons developer guy.
I think it's
Tidget.
Tidget. Sure.
Yeah. And he's like, oh, the city has the lowest crime rate in the country. Why, like, you know, and they're building tanks here. And they get some of the other people are like, oh, it's because it's a military defense contracting, which this book has like these characters take some interesting political stances, because the older Brit is anti-gun, I think, but he's pro-big business, but not that, and then we get the introduction to one of our other big characters, Hirohito Yuma, the son of the Yakuza boss from the beginning.
Which, like, by the way, like when they reveal like what he does for a living, it feels like a very mid 2000s. What would like a young Japanese man's career be? It's like making video games.
Yeah, see, like I don't mind it, like as a like, oh, it's the new generation of Yakuza making like a new front. And then we also get the information that his dad died in the state penitentiary last week. They also keep referring to him as Game Boy, which is funny in a bad way. Like, it's terrible. And that he's coming to the city for reasons. And they have a board. They leave their board meeting and...
Wait, and then there's also, like, they just have this random tower in the city that basically looks like...
A castle?
A rook, yeah. Like a rook chess piece in the middle of a town.
Yeah, that's the Yuma family, right? Is that their... Yeah. That's their thing, while the Sentinel has we'll get to it, a working typewriter on its roof.
Oh, I thought it was just a typewriter.
No, it is a functional typewriter, because that happens. So then, yeah, the dad meets with the mayor guy. They're having a campaign thing at his house. And the guy's like, oh, I played like an old white Tiger Woods. And basically ask him all this stuff. And this is when the mayor's like, oh, wouldn't it like really help if you like put on the costume one more time and like ran around up there? So we know the mayor knows he was the Green Hornet and also would do some underhanded stuff to stay mayor. And then we get the lunch between the dad and the son, which we find out that this is the anniversary of when the mom died of cancer. And the son resents the dad for not really being there for her last months and kind of tells him to fuck off. And it goes to the party where everybody's talking shit behind the dad's back.
Can we also talk about at this point, like, the son is like a really unlikable guy?
Oh, he's super terrible.
He's a dick.
Like, and it's not even just like, he's like a bad guy. Like, he's like has a bad character, but like there's like kind of something to him. It's just like,
no, he's the pretend Bruce Wayne that Bruce plays in Batman Begins when he's with the girls.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he's just a giant douche. Then we have the party. We meet the toy kid. The video game kid comes. And the mayor meets him. And it's like, yeah, my father paid for the life. And it's kind of like drawn straight face. And then we get smoking hot Asian woman in red dress. Like, what is the character from Resident Evil? Something Wong?
Ada Wong.
Ada Wong. And she does some sort of magic Vulcan touch. Oh no, she has like a dart on her hand, right?
Yeah.
And she darts the security guy and walks in. Everybody's talking. Young Reed's hitting on.
And like, he gets like hit in the neck and falls down, and neither cop, like the one cop just is like just standing there. He's like, oh man, long day, huh? And he's like, oh yeah.
I feel like he just
like there's just like a lot of like I don't know I don't know if there, because this happens like a couple times in the comic, I'm noticing, where like action and dialogue don't necessarily like kind of like meet. Like, it's like, like the art doesn't like reflect what the action is sometimes.
Yeah, I think,
and I don't know if that's within like the plotting and the scripting.
Yeah. I think what we're supposed to be reading is that the one security guard is walking into the room after the other guy is like, and it's like, oh, you like a long day, you're napping on the job, and the guy like doesn't know what happened and thinks he just like passed out.
Mm-hmm.
And the art really doesn't explain that well. It makes it look like the other guy's just standing there, but I think he's like supposed to be coming in for like a change.
No, I think he's dead.
No, the other guy's not dead. He turns around and talks.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's right. No, he's not. You're right. I remember now.
But yeah, there's like also a moment later, like in like when action's happening, where like things are not plotted the way the action is happening, and it gets like a little confusing.
The geography is like confusing of like the setting. But yeah, we get like young Reed is like hitting on our Ada Wong, and she doesn't even speak, and then he calls her Dragon Lady.
Stop talking shit about my dad and get out of the park.
Which I didn't mind that, where he's just like, oh, you're good enough to drink his booze, but like you're gonna talk shit here.
Yeah.
What were you gonna say, Fowler?
because we're like, are we like at the point where like the ninjas show up?
Yes. Yeah.
So okay, so if we're like reading this book, like within like okay, so she like hits the guy, and the two guards are like, oh, I wonder what happened. And then there's like a page where like she goes up to the bar. So like maybe like a minute has passed, and then like these ninjas come in and kill the guards, and then they show like two guards like at the door, and I'm like, are these the same two guards? Like the one just got up, he's like, yeah, like that was really weird. Like I don't know what, and then they get like garroted in the neck.
Is that
like,
even like? It's. I don't even know if they get garroted. It looks like they get like boloed around the throat.
yeah, or like whatever. It's like, could you? It's like happens in like a 45-second long span.
Yeah, they go out for. It looks like they were going out for a smoke break after the guy was woken up, and then they get immediately killed. But the ninja jumps down with like a sword, but then they get boloed.
No, these are like these are two separate guards, and then they have
No,
the two
I think they're the
guards
same.
at the door.
Oh, they're different guards. I thought they were the same guards.
Because I assume the guards at the door are the guards that we saw a page ago.
I thought they were the same guards.
No, I think you just saw 4 guards get killed.
Okay. So yeah, the ninjas come in. Old Man Reed is kicking ass. Young Reed is trying to help, but then gets like he's gonna get killed. And then Dragon Lady Ada Wong beats the shit out of people, and they're like, "Oh, who the hell was that?" And she's using her dress to steal like a sword, which I think this is like one of the pages like, oh, this is like kind of interesting, but there's like part of it I don't get what's going on, because like she hits a guy with she like whips one guy with her like dress, part of her dress, but then steals his sword. Like the sword stealing part is like kind of cool and would look really cool live action, like somebody using a sword like that. But these ninjas also have guns.
Yeah,
And not all of them are katanas. Some of them. Is that guy? I think there's a guy with a sai. No, she jams her heel in a guy's face. Basically, we have all this fight scene, and then her and young Brit do like a combo move and take out some guys, and then old Brit or the bunch of guys get hit with Hornet darts that Dragon Lady throws, which the old guy recognizes, and that's the end of that issue. And he's like, potato.
Yeah. Like, also, like, the idea of, like, calling her Dragon Lady probably is not great.
No, I get, like, I think it's because she's not talking, but yeah. It's definitely not great.
Mm-hmm.
And then issue 3 opens, it's like, so we got Brett Sr., Brett Jr., and the Mysterious Woman, and then this is where we have their, like, fundraiser, we have the mayor, we're getting, like, all of our players, and then the person that opens up is the Hornet. Yeah, he doesn't say that he's the Black Hornet, but that's who will be called in, whose mask is awesome looking. I really dig the design of like it's cracked and like it's red glowing underneath it. Because I think at some points the Green Hornet had a mask like that, not just like a domino mask. He had like a full face shield. Mm-hmm. And so while this is going on, old Brit basically goes up to him and like hand-to-hand fights him, and he's doing okay. And then the Black Hornet shoots the shit out of him, like 5 times and 1 in the head. And then Dragon Lady, or Ada Wong, we don't have a name for her yet, saves the younger Brit. The chandelier breaks. The older Brit is dead. No one knows what's going on. And then we like cut to the funeral with some John Woo doves.
Yeah, I can really kind of see how this. I can really like visualize in my head how this whole movie's kind of working out too.
Yeah. And then we have like the kid doesn't know what's going on. He talks to the mayor. It's like, I want to know who this is. Who was the Hornet? We have to find something. They're like, we don't even know if it's the same one. It doesn't look like it. He's not wearing the same colors. It's probably just some wannabe who's looking to make a name for himself. And then he's like, the mayor's like, oh, so your dad never talked to you about the Green Hornet? It's like he never talked about anything. All he talked about was like how you guys cleaned up the city and how the Hornet was part of that. And then we kind of move on. And the mayor kind of gives him the name of a bar, which he goes to. And he goes in. I'm sorry, I just noticed that there's like a little person drawn into this one panel with a weird shirt.
Yeah, I dock for Mo. Is that a
MODOK joke?
Docking is like a sex thing.
Was
and
Kevin-
there's a gay joke on the next page, so I just assumed it's like a veiled gay joke.
But the guy next to him also looks like to have a MODOK shirt on.
Yeah, I don't get it. It's just
Yeah. I feel like that's a joke written into the script that they didn't know how to draw correctly. But yeah, he takes the bar stool and smashes the jukebox, which is in this bar from the 20s. And what looks like a bunch of skinheads and like punk guys, they pull out a gun. And then we get the gun is completely taken apart in his hand. Or it's taken out of his hand, taken apart, and then put back in his hand, disassembled. And the Asian guy's like, no, like I'll put it back after you beat the shit out of that kid. And they have their fight, and Britt gets like the crap kicked out of him. But it's weird and like very Legend of Kung Fu here with what Kate like, because this is obvious. This is like obviously Kato. He beats the shit out of the guy and then leaves him his gun, and they have this big fight. Oh, this little guy, this little person is again in another panel. I did not clock that before when they're leaving. And basically, this is where it's Kato, and then he shows him that his father was the Green Hornet. And
dun dun dun.
well, and okay, so like going back to this fight, it's like the one thing that we like know about this guy is he's like a 6-time kickboxing champion.
Yeah.
And it's like he can't even beat like this random guy at a bar.
Yeah, the guy looks like he's much larger than him, and he's like, there's a difference between doing like a like point karate, like kickboxing fight and street fighting.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, this is like one of those things where like, oh, he could be like doing good, but the guy's fighting dirty and he doesn't know how to deal with that.
Well,
but yeah, he should be holding his own better.
But he used a beer bottle. Like the guy was just like, you actually was like pertaining to the rules of the fight dictated by this old man, where he's like, you use your fists.
Yeah, this is where like I think under like in a movie with some edits would be better.
Mm-hmm. Because I mean, like honestly, like that's the only thing we know about him. It's like he's good at kickboxing, and
he's really smart. Wasn't he like
he's
valedictorian?
Really yeah, but he has no direction. So it's like you're not even gonna let him like fight good. It's like.
And he doesn't want to take a job at his father's newspaper company. He's like, I don't want that.
Well, he has no direction. So because like we'll see like because it works for like the adaptation they actually do this with Seth Rogen. Because Seth Rogen is like not a guy that you consider to be an action star. So it's like it makes sense for him to like be like in the shadows of Kato, who's like a more well trained fighter. But at this point, it's like why are they bringing him in anyways? Only for except for like the fact of like honoring his father. It's like if he's not good at fighting, pertaining to like this one fight we just saw, like that should just be like the one where you're like, well, at least he's got something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and they kind of fix some stuff going forward, but so in the next issue, we basically get Kato giving us all the background. So what him as Kato and Green Hornet did. How Old Man Reed would use the newspaper to make the Hornet the biggest thing, and basically he created a phantom gangster in the Green Hornet between the paper and what they did. It was all never real, and young Reed like flips the fuck out, like this doesn't make any sense. And then we have because it's like you want to play Batman at your age, be my guest. I'm not going to help you out. And Kato's like, good, because your father had no interest in you. He did all this to make the city better. And this is where we get the reintroduction to his daughter, Milan, who finally has a name.
Not the most unique name.
No.
What a name, Mulan.
Yeah, I feel like some of these things, like if it was going into production, like names could have been changed.
This was like maybe like 6 years removed from the Disney movie.
Yeah.
As of like writing this script.
And I bet that's why that name is there. And it's like, oh, and your dad left protocol, so if he was to be killed as Brett, then certain things, but if he was to be killed as Brett by one of the Hornet's enemies, then he knew that he was compromised, so then we have to get you out of here. We're sending you to China. Then we get a cool look at all the different Hornet masks, which I do like and I think would have looked cool. That
would have probably looked really cool in a movie.
Yeah. And then packing up, and they're like, we're sending you to China to other Katos. It's like, what are you two going to do? It's like, oh, we're going to find your father's killer and kill the shit out of them. Then we see the dart guns. It's like, oh, what's she gonna do? She's just one girl, and she flings a throwing star at him, and he's like, all right, she's one deadly girl.
Yeah, it's like, did you not just see her like kick the shit out of an entire room full of guys?
Not guys, ninjas.
Yeah, oh yeah.
And so he gets on the plane, and he has all this contemplation, and he looks at the mask. And this is where you get your scene that you were talking about before we went on mic with the club, which is Charbitus, where they're playing Dracula in the background.
Yes! That was like the first thing I noticed. I was like, why do they have word bubbles for the lyrics of this club? I was like, what a weird thing to have. And also, like, what club in 2010 is playing Dracula by Rob Zombie?
Well, in 2010, no, but that's why I had my theory of this being set in 2004, 2005.
Even in 2004, 2005,
Yeah, it's
Dracula is a 6-year-old song at that point.
Which I do think it's funny because I feel like this entire scene is in the Seth Rogen movie.
Like if this was set in 2005, the Rob Zombie song they'd be playing is "The Man Without Fear."
But I feel like all this, when we get to it, I feel like this is like the
It helped me kind of visualize the scene in my head. Like
it's the one with what's his name, Seth Rogen's buddy from. Oh my god.
Like this would have been Steve Dave.
Oh no! In the actual Seth Rogen movie, I feel like this scene actually happens with that he does all of the movies with together, Pineapple Express.
Franco?
Yeah, because Franco plays like the sleazy club owner, and they have this whole scene basically.
I completely forgot about that.
Yeah,
it's okay.
And
Many did.
Yeah, so they have this whole thing, the shitty club owner. I do like the idea of following this like side guy who like corrects the guy, and he's just like, oh, why don't you get more stuff? And he's just like, oh, he doesn't like this job and all this stuff. And as he's walking, sees like shit falling apart, and they're burning money. Then we see Kato, the younger, come in. They're like, it's a chick, it's a chauffeur chick.
Oh, she's like this hot broad. Like, oh, like, do you want to have sex with me, lady? It's like,
yeah, they're basically saying the worst things ever. I do really dig her costume design, and like the way she looks awesome. I like how it's like a updated but not crazy updated version of the original Kato look.
Yeah, it looks good.
Yep. And I like her giant switchblades, like swords.
Was a real
those would look fucking awesome in a movie, like giant katana switchblades. So she's doing that, and she's flipping them all around, beating the shit out of everybody. She throws one and almost hits the guy in the dick. And then we get, which I feel like this scene is also in the movie, where we have Brett Jr. as the Green Hornet jump through the ceiling. And then in issue 5,
which by the way, like I thought I was like missing something, because we just see him like on the plane. And he's just like, I'm not my father. And it's like, there's like nothing between like that scene and like when he comes to the ceiling that like made me believe that he would have put on the costume, like giving.
Yeah, I think that's the panel of him looking at the mask is supposed to do. But in a comic, it doesn't give, like, without music cues and like tone and an actor portraying it, it doesn't convey that well.
And I felt like maybe the next issue, like, they will go into like a little bit more about how he just decided to do it.
Like jump back a little bit. They don't.
Nope. They're like, nope, he's just Green Hornet now. Also, you forgot to mention that the guy says, like, the main boss that they're all attacking, catches her and like has a gun like pointed her and says, "Trick or treat's over, bitch. Now drop the chopsticks, and next you can drop your panties." And you're like, ugh. And then like the big like interior monologue of him coming through the building is, "Ladies and gentlemen, the panties have officially dropped." As in like, oh, like I'm a badass. Also, he's coming through this ceiling, but he's gonna follow this beam.
Yeah. Well, I think the idea is that like he thinks he's being badass and just busts his ass. And I don't even know if he's there with Kato. I feel like he followed her there.
He definitely
knew she was going there.
Yeah.
because based on the first page of the next issue, it looks like she's like kind of surprised to see him as well, which he basically falls through. He jumps through, hits the beam, and just busts his ass through a pool table, which he would be dead because a pool table is like 1,000 pounds of like it's slate, like it's a giant piece of rock.
Yeah.
You would be if to fall through it where it would break in half, you would be dead. And then he just starts like dart shooting the shit out of everybody. Yeah, and then he's like, "Oh my god, my back!" Oh, this is where we have the Dracula thing. Isn't it? While he's walking in his back, and they're walking through the club, and it's a lot of the song.
Yeah, man. This club really loves their Rob Zombie.
Mm-hmm. And then they have an iPad to get their car to show up, which they I feel like they take all the car stuff directly into the movie that's in this, like the teched outness of the car. They jump in and then they go driving. It's like, we're being followed. He's like, no, I meant gunned down. And then she puts on James Brown, which I feel like is definitely a Kevin Smith thing in there, which again, they're putting music lyrics for this song in there. And it's like, all right, so like why are you playing James Brown? It's like, oh, you can talk. And it's like, why didn't you say anything before? And she's like, because it would have encouraged you to talk more. Which I do have to say, I like their relationship from this point forward, where she's like, you're a fucking idiot and you're terrible.
Fun.
And then she gets rid of the thugs, and then the cops get on them, and he's like, what can I do? And then he's like, oh, you don't even know where you're going. Let me drive. I know these streets. And she cracks his finger, and he's like, okay, my bad. And she's like, you want to do something? Hit the green button, and they're all green.
The Black Beauty.
Yeah. And he hits the button, and it shoots out the tires of the cops. And then, she hits like the NOS, and this is when he doesn't have a seatbelt on, which is basically the scene from Men in Black.
Yeah.
Where he gets thrown into the back, and then the magnet of all the guns and the guy's nose ring gets ripped out, and then they're actually not in the car, and but this is where like it gets confusing, because now he's a badass fighter, because he beats the shit out of people in this fight.
Yeah.
Because she gets like grabbed by the one guy, and he beats the shit out of him, and he's like, oh, I might be able to get used to this. And then this is our big reveal of the villain, where basically we learn, for obvious reason, like very obviously, that the video game guy, Hirohito,
the video game boy,
yes, is the Black Hornet, and the mayor is working with him because it was like basically.
Is he the Black Hornet?
Yes,
because the Black Hornet was at that party and killed the guy, but the guy was also there too. Like he's in the background.
He left and then came back in.
He's like
he did a Batman. Batman.
Because like in the scene when like the ninjas like come through the window, like he's in the crowd. So if
maybe it's not him at that point, like it's somebody else, but yeah, he's the one running everything, or so we think. And then and he teamed up with the mayor, so the mayor can get reelected. And then boom. Oh, so his dad is not dead.
And this mayor is the guy who's like been longtime friends with the actual Green Hornet, right?
Yes, he was a good guy.
That's what I thought.
He was the cop on the force that became mayor because he worked with the Hornet off book. And he's like, how did you do all this stuff? It's like, you said the Black Beauty is there. It's like, yeah. So was anybody killed? No. Then it was obviously not me. And it's like, this isn't part of the plan. It's like, not your plan, but our plan, the dad says. And he's like, you're supposed to be dead. People can't be seeing you around. And the guy has a katana, and they basically toss out the mayor. And this is where we get like I guess that's supposed to be the other side of the coin of the father-son thing. So he's like, the Hirohito is like, it's obviously the kid that took up the mantle, and the dad's like, yeah, obviously. And it's like, oh, that brat was spoiled and pampered, and I had to beg and steal to stay alive. And you were in prison while his dad was this like put you in jail. I want to kill him. And the dad's like, what the hell is your problem? Like, I've had so long to think about this. Don't worry about that. I'm free. Let's make our money. Don't worry about these cool. He's like,
yeah, you make video like, and also it's like, what are you talking about? I would like, he was pampered and I had to steal. It's like, you make video games for a living.
Yeah, like, I think it's like referencing like childhood stuff, but yeah, it's like
if he was like some kind of like entrepreneur or like some kind of like like if they like really kind of like built onto the rag, like that, like his
The
father
rags to riches.
failed, and then, like he had to like kind of like reinsert himself as a member of the family and like clear his family name. Except for they don't. They're like, yeah, like he's a multimillionaire because he makes video games. And it's like now it's like, but he's actually like a stealth assassin who's like trying to like.
Yeah. I feel like they are trying to say what you're saying, and that like their family name is ruined. So even though he's now rich, like they're not respected in Japan. And the dad's like, I don't care about taking that. It's like, we're going to make our money and then we're going to leave and fuck this city. Don't play dress up. What he's doing is actually going to help us. And you don't need to be the Black Hornet because that guy's there. Like, leaving your time to completing the guidance system. Which, I don't know, I feel like I've never noticed until this comic when they bold words like, oh ho ho, here's like a thing to remember.
Oh, well, then you have not read enough Frank Miller comics.
But basically he's just like, yeah, who cares about
Miller
this
bullets
city?
every other word.
And they're just like, who cares? And that's where the issue 5 ends. And
then issue 6, we get a cover of an image that happens nowhere in this comic.
Yep. And so we have Kato and Hornet going back home, and
like I honestly, okay, so the cover is
them hooking up.
It's them hooking up because at
very
this
sexy,
like very passionately, and it's like there's like no actual chemistry between these characters because their first conversation is like in the car, and so I'm just like, oh, I wonder how Kevin Smith's going to do this one, and it's like, you know what?
No, this is a total Dynamite thing. This has nothing to do with the script.
Yeah.
Yeah, but this is where we get like he's like, oh, like Kato drives the Black Beauty, but the Hornet gets this, and it's like the Hornet Cave or whatever. And then we meet White Kato.
The worst character.
Oh, you know who this character is?
The book.
Right? This is Jason Mewes' role.
Jason Mewes. You're right.
And it does not work as a comic book. Like I read this, I was like, this character has to be somebody that's actually goofy and funny that would work in a movie, because it's basically the role that Norman Reedus is playing in Blade 2.
Yeah, pretty much.
Which came out this exact same time.
He puts the booty in Black Beauty.
And it's like, everything. That's where like that line, I was like, oh, this is Jason Mewes' role. And it's like, so they're cousins, and my dad liked to, what does he say? He's like, yeah, I'm a round guy, but I got Kato blood. Dad loved to eat Chinese. Know what I'm saying?
A stinking round eye, I know. But I got Kato blood in me. Dad loved to eat Chinese. Know what I'm saying?
Which is really gross to say about your mom.
That's a Jason Mewes line if I ever heard it.
Yeah. But one of the things I do like is, so like the car flips around and the new Hornet is like, what's the point? And he's like, do you have any outsiders come down? He's like, well, besides you? Yeah, no. It's like, so who are you hiding the car from? Why is there a secret floor? It's like, oh, because it's old school and cool. He's like, yeah, okay. Like, I like the calling out of that stuff, which I do have to say in the movie, when we get to it, they do a better job of dealing with that idea. Then we have Old Man Kato, like, comes in and, like, gives him shit. And it's like, oh, he's just like his dad. And now he's going to train him, which is basically, like, very Mr. Miyagi, like, it's actually more like Bloodsport-y, the intro, where it's like he's just getting the shit kicked out of him, and
it would have been a training montage.
Yeah, and it is fine in here, but basically it continues where like we get all of old Kato's like stuff, and Mulan's beating the shit out of him, and he's like, "Oh, if I can block this next shot, you have to go out with me." And then it cuts, and they are on the town and beating the crap out of each other, and then this is starting another montage where Reed asks Jason Mewes to giving him a new costume, and then he's training with the gun, and he's good with it, and Kato takes it away. Then we get costume number 2, which looks like, literally looks exactly like the design for the Green Goblin 2 from Spider-Man 3.
Oh, I was going to say he looks like Sam Fisher.
That's because of night vision goggles, but like literally, I'm gonna find a picture of Green Goblin 2. It's the exact same thing.
Yeah.
Like, it's the hair out, it's terrible. Sorry. Then he gets blinded by the lights getting turned on. I need a new costume. And then this time he's Bat Hornet, where it's very literally Batman, and he has like a ridiculous cowl, and the guy pulls on the antenna, and then he trips on his cape and falls in the garbage, and is like, forget it, I don't need this, I'm going with the classics. And
like,
he's in the trench coat.
Like, okay, so, like, I did not read any further than this. Is this the costume he literally has for the rest of the comic?
Yeah, he's in the regular costume.
And that's, like, super disappointing because, like, I was actually, like, kind of excited to see them kind of, like, redesign this in, like, a new modern take. Instead of, like, you know, like, actually, like, kind of, like, trying something where it's, like, he can still do, like, kind of, like, the suit and tie look, but make it, like, you know, a little bit more modern looking. But instead they're like
Moon Knight style.
Yeah, exactly. And like, but instead they decided to do this like 8-page goof.
Like 3 or 4 sequels work of like costume kind of things, and then he's just like, all right, you know what, screw it, I'm just gonna go with the old school.
And it's just like super busy looking. It's like a coat with a cape with another cape.
I think
it's a trench coat with like a cloak over it in 3 different shades of green, with also a fedora.
Yeah,
I guess the difference is the mask, because it looks like he still has a cowl. He doesn't have a domino mask.
I think bringing up Moon Knight is like a really good idea. Like that, I think like that's like a really good interpretation of the modern look for Green Hornet.
Too bad it's worse in the movie.
All right, so this is where we're reading, but so issue 7, it's continuing. Yes, continuing the fighting, and now he knows Kung Fu bitches. And he defeats Mulan in a fight, and it's like, oh, don't ever tell anybody I bowed to you or I'll puncture your larynx. And then this is where they show Reed Jr. is also taking...
Hello?
Oh, I thought the sound just cut out for me.
Okay. So, yeah, and he basically what Lou was trying to say is that he announces that he's taking control of the newspaper.
Oh, I like that, like, the way that they signify this, they just give him a lever to, like, turn on. That's how you start the presses.
Yeah, that kind of thing. I don't know where Lou went. I think Lou's audio cut out, and... Is
it still recording?
It is still recording.
Yeah, man, this comic looks like it just has, like, a bunch of different earlier montages, fighting, like, this...
The whole thing, for me at least, plays like a summer blockbuster. I returned a comic off Hoopla, so I don't have it like I would. Otherwise, I would probably get it back up again. But titles now, I'll get Reed back up. It's fine. Yeah, but I do enjoy it. I really do. I think that it's a solid comic. Hang on, I'm gonna message Lou and be like, what happened? Oh, he's coming back in. Okay. But honestly, the whole move thing right now, so far, I guess take a pause for a second, plays for me like a summer blockbuster. Like, this definitely has that popcorny kind of feel to it.
Yeah, I mean, like, I don't think this is would have been a particularly good thing. Like, I don't know. Like, my thoughts on, like, 2000s era Kevin Smith is just, like, I don't think he's in a very good place, like, creatively or mentally.
All right, yeah.
I'm back. What was the last thing I said? Because I didn't realize.
Buying the newspaper. Sorry, folks. Now we're back.
Yeah, my internet decided. Yeah, he took over the newspaper, and then we have the reveal that, yes, Hirohito is the other one, and the dad beats the shit out of him. It's basically like, why are you doing this? We don't need to deal with it. And it's like, he's mocking me. It's like, who cares? It's like, we're going to finish this and then leave, and Hirohito's like, I want to restore the Juma name. He turned our name into a joke. And he says, remove your goddamn hand before I cut it off. And the dad's kind of like, I also wasn't there, so that's why you're acting like this. So like, and then he has to go to the mayor's thing. And then we have a cut to Kato, Mulan, and Reed doing the same thing. And Reed's like, oh, why don't you go with me? You can dress up. Just smoke out my father's killer. It's like, oh, name one person who's there that's worth the Hornet's attention. He's like, Hirohito Yuma. It's like, the Game Boy? Even she says it. And
the video Game Boy?
Yeah. And he's like, well, obviously, like, the Hornet arrived the same time he arrived. Like, the Hornet put his dad to jail, who died. Isn't he, like, a very obvious suspect? And Kato's like, who would ever believe a child's grief could drive them to such crazy lengths? Because Mulan's like, but he's a billionaire game developer. Yeah. And yeah, he says, Kato, you're a wise ass. And he's like, yeah, but like, I'm glad to see that you're like have the same brains as your dad. And Jason Mewes is like, well, you can't drive the Black Beauty, so here's a different black car to drive. And he's like, what's the point? That's the point, bitch. And tosses him the keys. And it's a whole red carpet thing. And Hirohito's there, and they have a conversation where he's like, oh, did I hear someone invoke the Hornet? And he's like, they get introduced by the mayor, and basically he's like, oh, I spent so many times playing your game Hit and Run. So basically in this world, he made Grand Theft Auto.
Yeah, I think that was like supposed to be like their joke.
Yeah. And then he goes, oh, my new game, you'll really love it. It's called The Green Hornet. And he's like, well, yeah, like I've always loved like the era of crime in your city. So why not make a game where you could play as a masked gangster and fight the police and the gangsters all at the same time? It'll be super elaborate. Some might see it as tasteless than elaborate. I mean, kids in front of TVs playing the part of a known killer. And it's like, oh, you grew up in Central City. Haven't you ever dreamed of playing a game as the mysterious Green Hornet? And it's like, oh, the Hornet, like my fascination died the day he murdered my father. And then it's literally like panels of their eyes looking at each other. And it's like, oh, I've forgotten. I'm so insensitive. Oh, but to let you know, in the game, you can play as both the green and the black. Maybe it'll be therapeutic for you. And then Hirohito walks away. And this is where
this is when Dick Cheney walks in.
Yes. Oh, you're looking at the panels. Yeah. So yeah, Tidget comes in, and yeah, it's obviously Dick Cheney, and they show a nuclear stealth bomber that is hovering, and basically like, yeah, it's undetectable by everything. It runs on atomic power, and so does its bomb. It could vaporize the city without getting subject from the EMP, and no one could know. And you can get in and out before you can say jihad. Yeah. It's like, oh, we should keep this to the self. It's like, and basically he's like, yeah, we farmed out the guidance system to another company. Oh, is that the guidance system that was in Bolt before? In the other issue? So it's like, oh, that's how you keep a big secret. Tell the guy in charge of a newspaper. It's like, I've been looking for like our own little Watergate. It's like, Village Bros, and they're like, oh shit. Like, Frank, it's like, Britt, your father. And he's like, yeah, he'd be appalled at this. He's like, I'm not my father's son. I'll keep your secret. But you're buying a year's worth of ads. So it's like, oh, he's playing like the scummy thing. Then the place gets attacked. And it's the Black Hornet.
Like, hey, I'm not my dad. I can be a little more dirtier than him.
Yeah. He's like, and Death's Venom delivered in the sting of the Black Hornet. And that's the end of that issue.
I just don't understand, like, how... I guess, like, how fast he could just, like, turn around from being the Black Hornet to being, like, regular guy. And I also just don't understand, like, oh, hey, like, newspaper guy, do you want to see our, like, secret bomber plane? It's just, like, I don't know.
They want him to buy in since he's, like, I guess he's supposed to be, like, the Waynes in this, where he's, like, the main family in the city.
But, like, all we know about the family is they run newspaper. That's all they do.
Yeah. So then Kato shows up and darts people, and the Black Hornet's line is, the feminization of the city's second greatest icon is as sickening as it is ridiculous.
Ugh. Oh, and well, you know what? This is the kind of thing I expect from Dynamite.
He says,
am I right, fellas?
Yeah, so and then his next one, a bitch Kato is an insult, and for that insult, I will make your death extra painful. And
this is like so gross.
Yeah, Kato's, as a helpless woman, I feel so threatened. If only there was a man around to save me. And then that's when Green Hornet shows up, and they have their big fight, guns, and all sorts of shooting. They like basically they're both like, oh, it's obviously you, Reed. It's obviously you, Yuma, or Hirohito, and they're all fighting. Blah blah blah. It's a lot of action. This is like our big action set piece. I guess like this is our second act climax.
Mm-hmm.
And then they get into the car, and he's like, help me with this. It's like, don't you understand? It was all a distraction. They get back to the base, and Black Hornet is there with a gun to Jason Mewes' head. And it's like, if you move, I'll kill him. It's like, why don't you finish what you started? He's like, I would, but I'm waiting. And then Kato shows up, and Black Hornet shoots Kato, and he is dead. and then they get knocked out and they wake up on the typewriter on top of the Sentinel. And this is where Black Hornet reveals that the typewriter is actually working and that the mayor is working with him. And Britt's like, this is insane. And then the mayor's like, you've gone too far. It's like, I didn't mean for your dad to get killed. And Hirohito's like, that was a bonus. It's like, you're still playing these old games, but it's a whole new thing. You're blinded to the obvious. It's like, why would
You're playing Atari while I'm playing PlayStation 2.
It's like, why would I come here to the epicenter of military defense contracting as a computer gaming magnet? It's like, oh, you built the guidance system. And he's like, yeah, and I'm going to steal it and sell it to a whole bunch of people, blah, blah, blah. And then he's like, I'm going to test, but people want to just buy it, so we have to test it. Basically, he's going to nuke the city.
It's a really stupid plan.
And so the mayor's like, what the shit? And this is where we get like an odd, like in this thing where it's been kind of violent, Hirohito kind of choke throws him, and he gets smashed by this literal giant typewriter letter.
Oh my god!
Yeah. It gets violent like real fast. I'm like, oh.
It's also like this giant typewriter is like it is functional, which is ridiculous.
Could you imagine like working near this building and like every like minute or so, like you hear a click clack, like as the typewriter's going and just making this really annoying like sound?
Can you imagine working right next to that building in Century City or right near that building? You're just trying to get your work done. You hear a lot of click, clack, click, clack.
Yeah, so issue 9 opens. They're still there. Like, what do we do? And Kato's like, well, there's like if we survive this, like, then we're going to be atomized by the nuclear bomb. And Green Hornet's like, oh, you're total ray sunshine. So 2 letters down, the second letter goes. It's like, she's like, I'm really scared. I don't want to die. And he's like, we won't, I promise. And
also, that's just very weird of her to just basically be like, all of a sudden, like, be thrown into fear, because it's like we haven't seen her like be vulnerable like that before. But it's like the idea that it's like, oh well, like he needs to like be the hero and save her.
Well, yeah, she pulls out the remote for the Black Beauty, but drops it, but he catches it, and then they hit the button together to have like the missiles sent to the thing, and then they hold hands as they hit the button, sort of, and then he drops it, and the missile goes off, and it hits the typewriter and blows up the building, and they go falling down, and it lands and gets stuck in the ground without them getting smashed. And there's an old homeless guy.
I kind of really enjoy this scene because it definitely reminds me a lot of like old school 60s Batman, and they're like kind of satirizing that, so I really dug it.
Oh yeah, and it's the show was the exact same time. Like it was on, I think, in 66 to 67.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So they're contemporary, and they've written the like comics of like the Batman 66 meets the Green Hornet, because they've continued the TV show of Batman into the comic in comic book form for like a while now. I feel like 5 or 6 years. I don't know if it's DC that has the rights though.
No.
I feel like it might have been Dynamite, because like the TV show rights are really wonky for that show.
I mean, Sony had the film rights, so
yeah. And then then we reveal that like Hirohito gets into like a drone controlled gyroscope to control the plane, and he's doing that, and he sees that the building blew up and that they're not dead, so he's pissed off. Green Hornet's on a turret in the back of the Black Beauty shooting at it, and they're like, oh yeah, this guy's name is Clutch, like the worst name. That's the Jason Hughes guy. It's like, oh, you're still alive. It's like, oh, there was the missile. We already used that. It's like, what else can you do? And they like drive through a barista, like a coffee shop, to get rid of one.
And he's like flying this plane in like the same kind of contraption that like the Penguin had when he like was controlling the Batmobile. Batman Returns.
And the dad's like, why are you doing this? Just drop the thing and let's get the hell out of here. Then there's an orphanage. This is where it's very Batman 66, like you were saying, John. It's like, oh, they can't do that, so what are they going to do? It's the kids or us. And that's the end of issue 9. And now we're on the last issue. And so basically they're going to sacrifice the Black Beauty, And Clutch is like, well, there's this other thing, and they hit a button, and out of the Black Beauty pops the cabin kind of pops up with the two of them in it and turns into like a small jet, I guess you would call it, like a little drone. And like, why didn't you tell us about this? I didn't know what to do. It's called the Hornet. And this is where like Kato's like how is that guy related to you? And Kato's like, oh, come here. I think you earned this. And he's like, Green Hornet's like, earned what? It's like, what you've been waiting, what you wanted for so long. And he's like, are you sure? And she's like, I think I'm ready. It's like, I'm not going to.
Closer to like make out.
Yeah. And he's like, you want to drive? And he's like, wait, what? It's like, you want to drive? Yeah, I think you earned it. It's like, oh, yeah, totally. It's like, the only Kato drove the Black Beauty. It's like, yeah, but Green Hornet should be the only one to drive the Stinger.
That's a cute line.
I like that.
That's where, like, I think that they do end up building a good relationship between the two of them. Like, through the couple of issues, it just takes a while. I think that's because they make Brett such a shithead early on. It takes 10 issues for him to become likable.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're going to fly at Yuma Tower because that's where he's controlling it from. And they're like, oh, they can armor up the Hornet, and they literally fly it through the building. And Old Man Yuma's like, you killed us. And they fly the Hornet through it. Brett jumps out of the Hornet. I guess, or though the Hornet crashes, they get out. He gets in the controls. He dives the stealth flame into the water. And he's like, oh, that was kind of anticlimactic. And then him and Kato get shot by the dad. And he's like, you've ruined everything. You've cost me hundreds of millions of dollars. And then, hey, it's Old Man Kato shows up. And it's like, oh, he's still alive. Hirohito has somehow put on the Black Hornet costume during this time. I know you're excited about that, Siler. And he's like, oh, like, we have the advantage, shoot him. Because Kato's like, oh, don't use a gun like the troll the Westerners. And I like this line, too, where he's like, daughter, with all due respect, your father is asking for his mask back. And she takes it off and throws it to him.
So cool. I thought that was
I really like this. I do think this issue is like by far the best one. He puts on the mask and they have like their fight, and then it's like Dad's alive and he's taking no shit is what young Kato says, Mulan. And Reed is like, you know what would be funner than watching? And then they join in and they attack, and they have him cornered, and they're like, hey, look, it's here. It's like they do the Scooby-Doo thing. It's like, now let's see who really runs this haunted carnival, Scooby. It's like, if it wasn't for us meddling kids, and then Hirohito like tackles him off the ledge, but Brett holds on, and it's like, hi, it's like, give me your hand. He's like, get out of here, I can handle this, Mulan. And she's like, damn it, Brett, just give me your hand. I don't want you to die. And he's like, no, I mean, get out of here, like, cover your eyes, because I don't want you to see this. And I actually really like this as an ending. He undoes his belt and unzips his pants and just lets them fall off, thus having Hirohito fall. And he's like, yeah, I thought it'd be better, like, therapeutic for me to gun down my father's killer, but this is way better. And so Hirohito falls from the top of his building because Brett took off his pants.
I think that's...
And he's like, you know what? He's like, I just killed the man who killed my father by taking off my pants, and I think Dad would have loved that. And it's like, oh, my hat. It's like, do you like the hat? And she's like, oh, it's goofy. It's like, I don't know, Kato, isn't the hat pimp?
Kato was like, God, no. But the hat...
Yeah, we see that the Old Man Yuma gets arrested, and basically the paper's doing great, and Kato leaves the vase at the grave. It's like a joke between old friends. And then we have the sparring match between Brett and Mulan, and she's like, she takes him to the ground and is like, in like MMA would be mount, and she's like, we have a lot in common, but you better respect my gender. He's like, oh, I do, I swear, can't you feel how much I do? And she's like, how would I know what a man's arousal feels like? And he's like, no way, you're saying you're a virgin? And she laughs, and then he's like, wait a second, you're into chicks? And she goes, like I said, lots in common.
So, like, also, like, just in case you didn't read it as her being actually gay, the last page reveal is like, wait, seriously, you're into chicks? And it's like, I'm like, okay, asshole.
Yeah, and to me that reads like, I feel like that's not, like, the way that that's written doesn't feel Kevin Smithy to me. Because, like, I feel like of the things, like, I feel like he's written pretty well dealing with, like, I don't know. I haven't seen Chasing Amy in a long time, and it's, like, a very not good, like conceptually a good movie anymore.
I
Like,
can't imagine chasing
it's gotta
Amy
be-
as a pro LGBTQ movie.
Yeah, it's gonna be like
They have
super.
aged well.
He said I think his brother is gay, so he wanted to try to like be respectful towards
Oh,
that.
I think his brother's been out since like he was like 20.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm trying to think what he. So this was 2005. Like what other movies? But like,
When the script was written or when the comic came out?
you know, when the script was written, like what other movies he had done? Because like he's been like very good, like pro gay rights and stuff like that.
2004, 2005 was Jersey Girl, and he was starting on Clerks 2.
Jersey Girl has. I don't mind Jersey Girl.
I've never seen it.
And also, this is a couple of years removed after the Clerks animated series, which is very bad with its
Yes,
with
we
its
watched it.
of gay people.
Which is yeah. So yeah, you're right. It's just in between Jersey Girl and Clerks. But yeah, I don't know. Like I think compared, we're going to watch the movie. I do think the idea of the son and the, like restart, like the son and Kato's daughter taking over works really well. If you flip, you could even I think flip them as well. Make it like Reed's daughter and Kato's son, or both daughters. Like I like the idea of like a generations thing.
Yeah.
Of keeping it like a way to modernize it as opposed to what we got. Because like I don't think the concept of what the Green Hornet is like a fake bad guy works as an original idea if there wasn't already a predecessor. Because it's just weird.
I will say about this specific comic, I was talking about it with Tyler before. Certain things aside, like certain elements of this comic aside, I had a really fun time reading. Like this for me played like a really fun like 90s early 2000s kind of summer blockbuster, and I would not have minded seeing this in theaters had it been made.
Yeah. Oh, the big action set pieces seem cool. Strangely, like you were saying, Siler, like the Hornet's redesign is very, very minimal. It's basically just a cow. While I love the Kato design and the like samurai switchblade things that she has, I think is a cool ass weapon. And I think that the skeleton of this story could work. It's the dialogue in this comic is terrible. I feel like at best sometimes, but like the plot and the action pieces work well. But I think it suffers from being. It's not in points. It's not a great adaptation of a script compared to the other comic book I've read that did that, which was the Aliens one, Aliens 3, and I think that's because that's more of a like. There's not as much action in that. It's much more talking. But like as an action like I don't know. I feel like we're gonna watch the movie, but I feel like there's like no way that this would have been a worse movie than what we got.
Oh, no, I am.
Siler, do you have any thoughts?
Story over the movie.
Like as like a comic, like I think like 2000s era Kevin Smith. Like I don't know if this actually got put on the podcast or not, but I'll just say it again. I think a lot of 2000s era Kevin Smith has a lot to be desired for. I think emotionally and creatively he was like kind of lost as a creator. I think it's like you could also like see it in a lot of the products he like started making around that time.
Well, yeah, if you're talking about like from like 2000 to like 2010, is like if you besides Clerks 2, everything else is like not great. You have Jane Silent Bob Strike Back, concert videos, Jersey Girl, Clerks 2, the pilot for Reaper, Zack and Miri Make a Porno, and Cop Out.
Well, like, and I like Clerks 2 actually a lot, but like
I do too.
I think with
I've never seen Zack and Miri.
I think with Jersey Girl and Zack and Miri, not like Jersey Girl's like not good.
They're him. All three, Jersey Girl, Cop Out, and Zack and Miri, are Kevin Smith trying to do not Kevin Smith movies, but like industry movies. So well, Jersey Girl is his rom-com.
To be fair, Jersey Girl was the first step, and Zack and Miri was more trying to fit in with the
Oh, it's him trying to make a what's his name movie,
Apatow movie.
an Apatow movie. Jersey Girl is his.
He didn't write it.
Yeah, Jersey Girl is his first attempt at like doing a like mainstream rom com, and it's also a movie that got destroyed by the Ben Affleck J-Lo stuff,
Mhm.
which he's talked about like like when they were first promoting it. It was like, oh, Affleck and J-Lo, and they were like kind of hiding that she dies in the first couple minutes, and by the time it was like the month or two before it came out, they were promoting that she dies in the first couple minutes.
Yeah.
That's how bad like that got. But then like Cop Out is like a whole other can of worms of like stuff.
And that's actually like kind of like around the time because like he makes Zack and Miri, which is like not bad, but like it does not perform well, and he basically has like a giant meltdown over his podcast about it, and then then he does Cop Out, and that doesn't perform well, and it's like also like a film that he like had no fun making. He has like another like kind of big meltdown about it.
Yeah, because basically it's like studio problems and Bruce Willis sucks.
Which was like the time, and then there was like the Too Fat to Fly stuff, and then like that was like kind of at the point I washed my hands of Kevin Smith because
that's why like, and then his next movie is Red State, where it's like all of that anger comes out in that movie.
Red State is so good. I love Red State.
But it's like not even like just like his film, but like also his comics. So it's like you have like Batman, the Whitening Grier, and Cacophony, which are just two very badly written Batman comics with like awful Walter Flanagan art. And like I kind of feel like there are like parts of this Green Lantern book that do feel like pretty cool, and there's points where like the Kevin Smith dialogue does work, and like it is actually like kind of fun. And then there's just like a lot of points where I'm just like, yep, this feels like 2000s era Kevin Smith, which is just like something I really do not feel like I want to revisit.
I will say nothing Kevin Smith will ever do or has done will be as bad as Yoga Hosers. I just want to get that out into the ether.
Yeah, and I mean, like, he's allowed to make a film for, like, his daughter, him and, Johnny Depp's daughter if he wants to, but, it's like, I don't need to see it.
Yeah, and he's now doing a horror trilogy thing, and look, he almost died, and he could do whatever he wants if he's gonna get, like, whatever funding, like, whatever. He's done, like, a whole bunch of stuff that's, like, I still super enjoy, and I haven't seen any of his movies after Cop Out. Like, I have not seen Red State, Tusk, Yoga Hosers.
Was a wonderful return.
Yeah,
that world.
Yeah, I've not seen Red State. I have not seen Tusk. I've not seen that new Jane Silent Bob movie. And I think like one of these days I might sit down and actually like kind of revisit them. But like it's like I was like very into that Smodcast kind of stuff in the 2000s. And I'm like a kid who like
I listened to all of his shows that around that time.
I listened to Hollywood Babylon a lot when I was younger.
I was like the perfect age to like kind of get into Kevin Smith. Like I thought Mallrats was like the funniest movie I've ever seen, and like Dogma I thought was like super good. But like
Dogma is my favorite one of his movies, and I think it's his best movie.
But like there was a time where I was just like I got like kind of like very exhausted, because it's like this is like my theory on Kevin Smith. It's like Kevin Smith breaks out the same time as Robert Rodriguez and Quentin Tarantino.
Yeah,
and
the three of them.
And all three of them, like they have like the same kind of track into like becoming popular, gaining traction, gaining an audience, and like in the 2000s, it's like Robert Rodriguez is doing like Sin City, and he's doing this massively popular stuff that's based off of the idea of his kids with Spy Kids. And Quentin Tarantino is like basically making banger after banger after banger. And
he's kind of the more aberration of the three, because after that, Rodriguez does some like dog shit. Like he makes the El Rey Network, and he hasn't done anything worthwhile in a while.
I mean, like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood or in Mexico is good.
I disagree.
That's not.
But I'm specifically talking about like this 2000 era where it's like you see like the rise of these guys' careers, and Kevin Smith, a guy who like made this brand of comedy, sees like Judd Apatow basically like doing that brand, but making like millions of dollars, and he's like super jealous, and it comes off like very like
Oh yeah, and
flattering.
he's openly talked about like how in retrospect shitty that is, like how shitty it all was, like his very open jealousy. I don't know, like I feel like after his heart attack, like was that like 2 years ago,
Mhm.
and like kind of around that time, like directing like the Flash episodes and Supergirl, like, and I really like those episodes of those shows that he's directed.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think it's like really funny that like a decade ago he was like a guy, who was like, I'm too lazy to make an action film, and then he's doing like
Well-
TV action stuff, but it's like it looks like he kind of like discovering more as a filmmaker and like opening up to like different ideas, and like he's like 2020 Kevin Smith seems to be in a lot better place than like 2005 Kevin Smith.
Oh, for sure. Oh, for
Yeah.
definite sure.
Yeah, I think a lot of it, like, yeah, he's in his 50s now, and like and I think he's talking about he kind of went through like a midlife crisis in his like late 30s, in his 40s, because like his Askew stuff was held kind of in ransom by Weinstein Corporation, and then one of the main actors would not sign on because he never got paid for Clerks 2, basically.
Yeah. Like, and this goes into some news about Kevin Smith developing a Green Hornet animated series. I would much rather see 2020 Kevin Smith's take on the Green Hornet than 2005's Kevin Smith's
And I
take.
believe we talked about before, like before we started recording, it's basically the skeleton of this, where it's the daughter of Kato and the son of Brett Reed.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that's I think like the best thing about the takeaway from like.
And that's why I said, like, I think the skeleton of the script is the best way to do, especially these pulp characters that are, because the pulp characters, because we're gonna do like a round of pulp comics and comic book movies, like they're characters who were radio plays and pulp magazine originally in like the 30s and 40s,
Mm.
and then became comic books in the 60s, and some of them TV shows in the 60s, and then became movies in the 90s, with this one being a movie in 2009 or 10?
2011.
2011.
That's awesome that year. That's why.
Yeah, and it's like, and a lot of these characters don't translate to modern audiences, and I think Green Hornet is one you could kind of play with as compared to like The Shadow or Dick Tracy or I'm trying to think of some of the other pulp ones that they like, or like The Phantom. Like no one wants a fucking Phantom movie ever again or anything.
Because I think like also at the end of the day, it's like, what is the basic concept of the Green? He is a masked vigilante who pretends to be a bad guy but is actually a good guy, and that's like something that you don't even like really kind of see in modern comics. It's like,
No, that's what makes it cool. It's like, what if it's Batman? It's Batman, but instead of like it's the fear of Batman and the idea of like all the gadgets and the sidekick, except everybody thinks he's actually the villain, but he's actually the good guy.
And like you could do like Dick Tracy as a retro piece, like, because I do not see like how you could do Dick Tracy as like a modern film. But
No,
like,
they all have to be like it's set in the past.
90s movie. Have you seen the one from 1990?
not in a very long time.
Okay.
It's
but
thing, and it's good in its time.
But that Dick Tracy movie is also still considered like a period piece, because it's not Dick Tracy set in 1990. It's Dick Tracy set in like the 1950s or whatever.
Which
But basically, like the core like I want to get to is just like, what's the thing that's special about the Phantom or the Shadow that has not been like aped or stolen or like reused by like other like superhero characters like better?
Oh, the Shadow is basically what creates Batman.
Yeah.
And the Phantom is terrible.
Like, actually, of like that pulp era that I still think you can do, like, that it would still be popular today. Like, if you did it in like maybe not modern day, but like do it as like a period piece. It's like Zorro. Like Zorro Zorro is always cool. And if anything, like Antonio Banderas has like told us that like, hey, even in the 90s, you could still do a really kick-ass Zorro movie.
Oh yeah, but like, and I think he is the one character that I think one of the big things is that like that character and what it represents is still resonating today, which is why that character is kind of separate from all the other ones.
Mhm.
And I think that also helps Green Hornet in having Kato in there because they're a pair. And I think having Kato there helps that as well. Where it's the other ones, it's like they're all rich white characters. Like literally all of them. Like the Phantom is a rich white guy who has the power ring from a mystical Asian island. And the
Mhm.
Shadow is a rich guy who was a bad guy who learned mesmerism from an ancient Asian guy. And I am trying to remember some of the other ones. Like the Rocketeer would have to be a period piece, but and that movie's awesome. I think that weren't they doing an animated thing for that at some point?
For which one?
Yeah, there's like a kids version of like the Rocketeer that's on like the Disney Kids channel.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and I think they had the original actor come back and play like a side character too, which was
And Disney like still dips its toe into pulp heroes every so often. It's like they did a Lone Ranger movie that everyone hates, and they also did a John Carter movie that no one watched.
Yeah,
like
I've
John
actually heard not bad things about John Carter, and
I liked John Carter quite a bit.
yeah, it just bombed. Apparently, it went from John Carter of Mars to just John Carter because something of Mars came out like months before and bombed, and so they removed the.
Well, also like historically, there's like an idea that titles with the word Mars in it don't sell. Like if you just like look at like all the movies that have Mars in the title that have been made in the last 20 years, they've all like underperformed. Also, Mars Needs Moms is like one of the worst disasters Disney ever made, and like I believe that's also
that's the Sheldon's an Alien movie.
That's the Robert Zemeckis animated movie about the alien, the Martians
Yeah,
that take bombs. And
it's the movie where the guy that plays Sheldon from Big Bang is the alien, right?
I do not know. I know at one point Seth Green was the kid, and then they were like, "Hey, Seth Green sounds nothing like a kid. Let's redub this actor." So there's like very early promotional material with Seth Green as the kid, and then there's like later material where it's like the actual kid being used.
I'm looking at the IMDb and it still says Seth Green. And I am thinking of a completely different movie.
Seth Green is doing the motion capture. I think the one you're thinking of is Home.
Home?
That's the DreamWorks one. So Seth Green did the motion capture, and someone else did the voice. It's like the Polar Express, where Tom Hanks did the motion capture for like 5 characters, and others did the voice.
Yeah, the one I'm thinking of stars Jim Parsons, who was from Big Bang, Rihanna, Steve Martin, Jennifer Lopez.
That's Home.
Yeah.
Oh my god. Sorry, my desk just exploded.
So before we end out, we have to talk about, since we read and talked about a Dynamite comic, what's been going on with Dynamite over the last like month.
Which has not been surprising to me, as a company like Dynamite, whose bread and butter is 30s to 50s pulp action.
Yeah, they own all the pulp characters, I believe, right? Basically.
Yep. I mean, it's like they do everything from like Vampirella to Lone Ranger to Mars Attacks to Shadow to the book we read today, The Green Hornet.
Yep. Army of Darkness, Terminator, RoboCop, Dracula's, Sherlock Holmes, Alice in Wonderland, John Carter of Mars.
They were at some point. I think Disney like
got that back.
But I think they're also public domain. They do like a lot of public domain stuff too.
Yes.
Public domain. But anyway,
all those pulp characters are pretty much public domain now, right?
And also it's like you look at like every Dynamite book, like every cover has like 5 different covers.
One
like,
cover by Alex Ross.
One cover by Alex Ross. Another cover by like like basically like there's always like think of like a high paying like famous cover artist. More likely they have a Dynamite exclusive cover for. But recently they've been starting doing like Kickstarters for like coins and covers from like people who are involved in the comic skate scene, which like I think is like, it's like, for one thing, it's like if you're like a company who's like doing a Kickstarter for like coins or like bullshit that's not related to like a comic. Like, I don't know, that seems like weird. Like, I don't think like major comic companies should be using Kickstarter to like, fund different projects. But then like having like, but like at a point of using Kickstarter to basically use as a pre-order system for comic covers of that are being used by people who are in a part of Comicsgate just seems very shady and really like not a bad look for. It's a very bad look for your company.
Yeah, so they did post a statement a couple days ago, which I think one of the main things, like they, besides having the pulp characters, like they have done stuff with Kevin Smith before. It's because they're a New Jersey company. So obviously there's that connection. But their statement was, Dynamite Entertainment is a partner in the fight for equality and inclusion. Our company was founded on these core values more than 15 years ago, and they are essential to the creative process, the work of visionary artists and entrepreneurs that we are passionate about. Intolerance has no place in our company or our industry. The impulse behind this brief association was that of helping a friend of many decades and his family, and not how the assistance could potentially affect our valued colleagues, partners, and friends. The association is behind us, and this time has strengthened our resolve to continue working with the most diverse talent in creating the best comics possible.
I do not buy that at all.
Like, this is after like the biggest names ever said that they'll never work with them again.
This is like also like after like this is not like a one-time thing. Like it wasn't like they just got caught doing like this thing for a person who was a part of Comicsgate. Like they've been doing this for like literal years. Like even after like Ethan Van Sciver, who is like one of the main driving points of this whole entire thing, like quit working at DC, he was still doing like cover work for Dynamite, like as he was being like an openly out racist asshole. And they have like really kind of like dug their heels in doing like different variant artwork that are for people who are like a part of this thing. And so you can't just be like, we were completely ignorant of like this idea, or we were just trying to help this one person, when you've been doing it for a while. And like, you know, I don't buy it. Like Dynamite to me has always kind of just seemed like a company that is like really kind of like shady and like
Yeah, I never heard they were like this shady and everything until I heard all the news come out.
Yeah, apparently I'm like reading an article like Van Sciver and the publisher Nick Barucci are longtime friends.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why like he did a Red Sonja cover a Vampirella cover for them. And I think there was a Red Sonja one too.
Probably.
Yeah, they were using Kickstarter and what was the other one? Another one of those like things, and then yeah, a bunch of people pulled out. Like I'm trying to look for the names.
I mean, you know, it's like Mark Russell. Like I follow. He basically was like, my contract's up. I am not re-signing. You know, it's like he's talked about how he's like writing certain books for them, and he's had a lot of success with like, you know, the kind of things he's writing. But
yeah, I'm looking. It's like Matt Miner, who wrote like the Guar book. Carla Pacheco, who's been writing their page book.
If I believe, they took that whole Guar book for them. Like they're like shopping that book elsewhere.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like we did a Guar long before the CG Dynamite Alliance. Before COVID, there were talks of doing another series. I pulled that. We'll find another home.
And it's like look, man, like if Dynamite wants to hook their wagon onto Comicsgate and still use like Comicsgate people, like, you know what? People don't have to work with that company, and people don't have to buy their books. And if Comicsgate people think that Comicsgate really is like the driving force of like this of the industry, which they're not, based off the numbers that comics are still doing very well despite like them screaming that the sky is falling. Then like that's Dynamite's prerogative.
Yep, and literally like the first, so like I'm reading like the article when this first like hit, and it's like their initial thing was, oh, like, in speaking with Cecil, neither one of us realized the cover would be so polarizing.
You don't say.
Gasp! I am shooketh.
It's like you would have to be completely ignorant to like if you're a part of an industry that has like a a substantial amount of people in it who are like openly harassing like female and minority based writers. Like I don't know, man. Like either you have your head in the ground or you're being completely oblivious.
Yeah, and this guy, didn't he like specifically go after Gail Simone? I think, or like one of the people involved, like specifically was like harassing Gail Simone. I believe.
Probably. Like I mean, she gets like I followed her and she like retweets like some of these idiots sometimes about like different bullshit they'll say to her or to Mark Russell or to Mags or to any other like writer who is like a minority or speaks up or a woman who speaks up within this industry about how well like what are you talking about? Comicsgate isn't isn't a hate group. Like where does it say that we're a hate group? And then you like give the receipts and then those same people are like, well fuck you. It's like, oh okay.
Yeah, I'm looking at the Dynamite, like what they have, and it's like all the weird pulp stuff, and then there's like a lot of music stuff, like Alice Cooper. They have like all the Army of Darkness stuff, Barbarella, which is like another pulp stuff, Battlestar Galactica, Bionic Woman, Bionic Man, The Boys.
Yep. They do in fact have The Boys.
Charlie's Angels, Charmed, Chastity, Alice in Wonderland, Drac. This is like they have like weird ass shit, like Dark Shadows. I didn't even know that someone was. Isn't that the thing that was a
Johnny Depp movie?
Yes, but the Johnny Depp movie is a remake of it was a soap opera.
Yeah, but like a lot of the stuff they have not made out very long. Like the Alice in Wonderland comic is from years ago.
Okay.
They have not done Dark Shadows in a very long time.
I just clicked on like where it said like titles on their site.
Yeah, they had some Kirby.
They have Game of Thrones.
They had Game of Thrones. Those books are really bad and awful. Like the art's really bad. And that's the thing with a lot of Dynamite artworks is they pay like a lot of money for like
Covers.
Covers, but then like the interior art is like not great.
Yeah, so sucks that it's a downer, but that's kind of like we couldn't talk about this comic and doing this movie without talking about that since it literally like just happened. So yeah, I don't know. This is probably the only Dynamite comic I've ever read.
Yeah,
I can't think of another one.
I can't remember. I also can't remember because I'm tired. It's almost 12:30 on the East Coast.
I read issue 1 of a Killer Instinct comic they did recently, and it was very bad, and so I never picked up another.
Yep. All right, so let's close out since it's very late. You can catch us at all our normal places, and yeah, we will catch you guys next time. Look out for the movie party for Green Hornet 2011.
Connor Irving loves you.